Thank you very much, Hugh, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I'll just add to the our global weather report. I'm in Nottinghamshire, England, and it's 10 degrees, but I have to say it almost feels like summer for us right now, with last week being in -4, -5 temperatures. So very similar to some of the US weather reports we're seeing here, with being snow, coldy, and ice. So it's great to be here, and if you've attended before, hopefully you'll be familiar with the format that Hugh and I follow. So we'll be taking a look at sort of the core and key principles around sort of good design decisions and how to create e-learning for global audiences. And towards the second part, we'll be showing some more of the practical elements. So you'll be seeing some of the live demonstrations from Hugh. But to just go over the agenda, we're going to be having a look first and foremost at Know Your Authoring Tool, the principles that drive those efficiencies, and then to showcase 7 in particular features that will improve that return on investment when creating your e-learning content. Having a look with the more practical elements, we're going to be looking at what we can do to sort of create courses using time-saving design choices. And then having a look finally at why having your head in the cloud is a good thing. And obviously we're talking about our cloud-based products. So let's start off today's session by starting a quick poll. So it should be with you in a few moments. And today we're going to be asking questions around, do you currently build e-learning for a global audience? And also asking today, how confident are you at knowing which features that you can use from your current authoring tools to drive maximum efficiency in your programs? So we'll just give everyone a few moments just to answer those questions. Excellent. So we can see that almost 3/4 of our audience today do build e-learning for a global audience. So that's fantastic. And what we'd like to see, obviously, if you do have plans to build for a global audience, so you'll also see additional top tips from that today. Our next question is, as we've mentioned, about how confident you are with the features that you currently have in your authoring tool and how you can use them to drive maximum efficiencies. Just how confident are you at this current moment in time? And so thank you very much for that. We can see it's quite an even split between fairly confident and not confident. And also we have a few attendees today that are very confident in using those tools. So hopefully from what you see, we'll be able to improve that confidence level, or at least give you some awareness of what we see from an industry perspective being used more and more to engage our learners. So starting off with knowing your authoring tool, the principles that drive efficiencies. So we know that creating great e-learning content for a global organization, it means balancing a consistent corporate message with the individual needs of the markets. And we're going to take a look at what those key principles are and how that will help global organizations keep e-learning projects economical and effective. So really hitting home on the driving efficiencies point. We really want to build content once for the device requirements of different markets. So that whole create it once, tailor it everywhere ethos. And the days where everything digital would be exclusively consumed on a desktop or laptop, it's really a distant memory for a lot of learners now. And producing desktop only e-learning content really has become nonsensical for many organizations. And this is simply because when working internationally, countries such as China or India, where home computer ownership was never really the norm, it was mobile internet usage at 62% and 77% respectively. So we can see that multi-device ownership when we're talking about global learners. But this isn't to say that you shouldn't, start offering and only use mobile, e-learning. After all, we still use a lot of desktop and laptop devices. And in the US, that split is around 47 to 49% desktop. We still have a high usage dependent on where you are. And that means it's really important that what we develop once is going to work on multiple devices. No one screen type is more important, and that's exactly the point. And multi-device e-learning offering is essential to cover all bases without the duplication of effort that would otherwise be necessary. Certainly when we're looking at the objective of being to save time and money with the authoring tool, you really only want to have to author that course once and leave it up to the learner to how, when, and where of consuming that content. Using display conditions to serve regional differences so we can make things more specific and relevant to those learners. And language use won't always neatly align with the diverse cultural and regulatory needs of our different officers. An English-speaking employee on the East Coast of the US may need to know slightly different information from one in London or another in Los Angeles. And at first glance, it might seem that catering to these regional variations would complicate an economical approach, but thankfully, due to things like display conditions within our tools, it's easy to keep everything within a single course and tailor it depending on their selection. So those local variations with policies, procedures, legislation can make sure that's relevant, keeping it within the same course. And by allowing those learners to indicate where they're from, as we mentioned, perhaps a certain territory, a certain business, we can set that level of customization that's based and relevant to their needs, whilst importantly, hiding the ones that are irrelevant to them. Looking at how to centralize resources by putting everything in one place, making it easier for our learners. Even when working in a single office location, passing around different files between course contributors can be a headache. This is especially true if you're stuck using another desktop-based authoring tool. As soon as an international element is involved, whether that be a single localization expert or an entire regional team editing or authoring new courses, it can be a headache that's magnified once you scale. So with cloud-based authoring tools, it can solve those logistical issues that multiple contributors can present, regardless of where they're based. A basic tool will get you shared browser-based access to the editor and your courses. And this is where we're referencing being in the cloud. Ensuring that that collaborative workflow is enabled and easy for everyone to be empowered, from our learning designers to our subject matter specialists. To empower our local authors to build localized content, it's really important. Working effectively with local teams, it's not just about standardizing and dictating an approach. It's important that teams are empowered to create unique courses themselves. Sometimes there are subjects that are only relevant in a number of limited, perhaps, markets, but sometimes the messaging of the course requires an entirely different approach from market to market. It's having those local experts. A shared cloud-based environment means that the authors and editors of great courses can be located anywhere, and your learners can benefit from the insight of the most appropriate experts. Having a look here, we're going to showcase the 7 features that improve the return on investment on your e-learning. Easy duplication is at the core of most great money and time-saving features. Some parts of your courses will be used again and again. Parts that often only really need to be done well once. This could be your layout, it could be templates that you've created for compliance, but being able to reuse those topics or those screens or those layouts can be really important to drive the efficiencies. And you still want to retain that creative control over your content, but a good authoring tool will let you focus your energy your creative energy on the parts of the course that matter most, ensuring that everything is relevant and appropriate to those learning objectives. So let's have a look at the first feature, true multi-device e-learning. We've already referenced this a little bit in terms of the benefits of that when reaching a global audience with multiple devices, but building for desktop and mobile versions of your course separately is one obvious way of unnecessarily doubling course production time. And as silly as this approach sounds, after nearly a decade of device agnostic or responsive web standards, it's somehow still the way that a number of authoring tools and systems work, and it's still their approach to multi-device learning. Even some tools that offer true multi-device e-learning still lock their most advanced features into a single device mode. So it's critical trying to understand what we're trying to achieve with our learning objectives, but making sure that we're not hampering the experience dependent on device type. And making that e-learning available for multiple devices, it shouldn't be hard work with the current modern technologies. It certainly shouldn't limit your team's creativity. So it makes a lot of sense to choose an authoring tool that allows you to put the best possible course together once and for it to function optimally on every device that it appears on, ensuring that it's responsive and it's adaptive. To help us get going, have a big library of off-the-shelf assets, because we know that e-learning goes beyond presenting a simple slideshow. Designers instinctively seek as many interesting ways of presenting information as possible, and a course should have plenty of interactive elements to satisfy this. However, we're also aware that perhaps developing these kinds of presentation and question assets from scratch is a time and therefore cost-intensive process. So depending on your authoring tool, this may require a skilled programmer. Therefore, the more high value, high visual appeal assets your tool comes with, the better. They're quick to implement whilst providing satisfying complex interactions that your learners will love. A sizable library of interactions should have a variety of ways of presenting similar information, not just a simple carousel or image wall, ensuring that you can use display conditions, variables to add those gamification elements, which we'll be showing a live demonstration of the rich feature set in Gomo later on with Hugh. So hopefully you'll be able to recognize that if you're already a Gomo customer, or if you're new to Gomo, see how easy it is to add additional complexity, even from using an off-the-shelf asset. We've got themes and screen templates. So we're talking about helping people get started. And with theme and screen template libraries, the great value for money potential, because it allows you to get up and running with proven branding and layouts. Rather than starting from scratch with every screen and placing assets individually, you can start with a screen template that's identical or similar to what you need and skip a lot of the work required to get to that point otherwise. Your authoring tool should allow you to add or remove assets when the page is necessary, obviously resulting in a big payoff for little input and effort versus the visual. The same principles apply to style templates, with the quickest win being the base theme you like the most and customizing it to meet your brand colors. And you can use that across all of your courses, ensuring that you're brand compliant. Not only does this save time and it's reusable, but it empowers the SMEs to focus on the content rather than the look and feel, the visuals of the course. We want those subject matter specialists to focus on all of the knowledge that they can share and input that into the learning objectives that we're trying to achieve. Critically, by having one central theme used across multiple courses, we know we're going to keep that consistent brand message is going to be brand compliant. and it saves a huge amount of time versus having to do that on a per course basis. We talk about global support, global deployment, a global audience. What is absolutely critical is having robust multilingual support. We need to have the multiple languages available for our learners. In creating multilingual and localized course content for a global audience, it can be time consuming if you don't have the right tools. If you're finalizing a single language version of the course and individually replacing a text on each screen, it could take a huge amount of time to work through. The one course per language approach means that any changes that we make to our course will be available in our translation process once we're ready to add the additional languages. A far more cost-effective and efficient way of handling this is to work with, like we're mentioning, an authoring tool that supports multiple languages within that single course. So that means that if we make a change to a layout and add a new asset in or an image, or make something specific to a language selection, we can do that within the same course without having to duplicate. And Gomo's implementation of this, it minimizes the input required because we work with the industry standard eXlif translation files. So you can simply complete your course, add all the languages required, export your eXlif files for translation or local translation, input them back into the course, and you have all of those languages available within that one course that you created to start with. You're not having to reproduce the course. And what's more, in addition to translated text, you can change the images and videos for each language. You can make things specific for proper localization of courses, presenting imagery that's more regionally or culturally relevant, for example, using things like display conditions so that when the learner does select a particular button, asset, or interaction, it will only show what's relevant to them, or perhaps even when selecting the language. Also, it's worth considering the tools that you're using. Do they have language persistence? So if a learner has selected their native language or language of choice and they come back to the course when it's bookmarked, will it still retain that language selection, or do they have to select the language again? So all of these quality of life improvements and sort of user navigation choices that we have to review when developing our content. Ensuring quick, convenient, value for money delivery of content. And all digital onboarding is naturally a sort of money-saving proposition over providing printed forms, reference material. It's also a more environmentally friendly alternative too. But how can eLearning authoring tools specifically lead the way of delivering content less expensively and more conveniently than other digital options? Without a wide and flexible range of delivery options, your authoring tool may not make much difference at all in this area. The most basic format, a large SCORM file containing all course assets, is straightforward to deal with, assuming you have an LMS to host it. However, it can be cumbersome to work with in the long term, as the whole course has to be reloaded, updated every single time, regardless of how much or how little you're changing. Gomo has a delivery method that specifically addresses this. It's the Gomo LMS wrapper. It's a tiny file that you upload just once in place of your full export. So just a small file rather than the full SCORM export, but it's dynamically linked. This ensures your learners always receive the most up-to-date version of your course. Similarly, if your tool offers cloud-based hosting, you may also be able to provide your onboarding courses at scale via a website embed or a simple direct link. So reaching people quicker and enable quicker deployment of your content. There are also huge cost and time saving efficiencies here to consider around multi-device delivery. If your authoring tool generates the best possible results no matter your device, that cuts down on the creation time. And if your new hire is then able to consume that content wherever and whenever is most convenient for them, it can help them fit learning more easily around other tasks, making them more productive sooner and ensuring we can reach out for all of that compliance information. That leads nicely into using analytics to measure success. So measuring the performance of your employees and your courses is always important with onboarding a specific area of opportunity. It's one of the areas that has huge training participation in most organizations. It's also an important first touch point in the monitoring of individual employee progress. Your authoring tool will need to support at least later editions of the SCORM standard, for example, SCORM 2004, but ideally XAPI, in order to take advantage of finer detailed insights into which areas of the course are effective or indeed ineffective. Nonetheless, a lot can be understood in aggregate with the data on interactions, session time, and score data that even SCORM 1.2 gives you. For example, a 0% or 100% pass rate that indicates questions that are too easy or hard, or potential technical issues, multiple attempts indicating brute force attempts that could be prevented by allowing only a limited number of attempts before failure. There's always a note of caution to strike with data. The extra resolution that standards like XAPI, for instance, can give you is invaluable, but it also comes with a risk of being overwhelmed. The best approach is to define what you want to measure and why you want to measure it as early as possible, rather than combining data and saying, well, actually, we just want to have the data because the data is available. If we're measuring behavior change, for example, what specific change for our KPIs are we trying to measure? And as we've sort of previously discussed some of this in our onboarding webinar, which will have some links available to you. But having an advanced analytics package like Watershed or similar learning analytics programs that can easily combine insights with additional sources alongside your authoring tool enabled XAPI data can be an effective way of cutting through this. Don't underestimate simpler approaches though. Simply taking learner feedback on your courses or even individual assessment questions can be extremely insightful. Having this data is important because it allows you to go back and revisit your learning design. It can be used to pick up any trends and to learn about levels of competence coming across. Measurement will give you a better understanding of the needs of your individual employees and departments, and importantly, how you can support their development moving forwards. Finally, the full support package. Value doesn't just come from the software you buy. The support you get as part of the package can save you significant time and money. Is it easy to understand? How much help will you and your learners get with understanding the tool? The longer your team spends on getting up to speed, the less time and cost effective the proposition is. That said, allow extra time to truly experience the tool so that training doesn't go to waste. So ensure what people are learning, they're able to apply in a practical sense. Supporting your tool is just a start. But look for a tool that offers a range of self-service support resources, in addition to a responsive support desk and a customer success manager or someone that's dedicated to voicing your feedback and ensuring that things can go smoothly for you. The format of these matters immensely. Gomo's approach is to offer a searchable knowledge base that explains features in clear, uncomplicated language. We also offer an academy focused on microlearning videos. The goal is to offer efficient training rather than just training, so your team can get answers quickly and get back to work. The more support you get as standard, the better. However, additional costs are worth weighing against long-term benefits on non-flexible requirements. For example, if your business has strict security requirements, you may have support and training requirements that go beyond what's available off the shelf. So ensuring that your vendor is flexible and understands your needs to help you, importantly, and to get started as quick as possible and to empower your users. Now I'm going to be handing over to Hugh Edwards, and he's going to be showing some live demonstration around how some of this is used practically with time-saving design choices.
Thank you, Simon, and welcome to those of you who've joined since the start. Please do feel free to ask questions and share your own experiences in the question box in the GoToWebinar panel. See that David raised a point here saying that he hopes that we'll define what we mean by efficiency. We've been talking about efficiency in that first section. And I would say that with efficiency, really we're talking about not only the speed and ease of creation of content, but also of the updating of content, that you're going to end up with this very fast turnaround, both for the creation, but also updating. And that's going to give you those efficiencies there through all of the techniques that Simon's been outlining there. But do feel free to add in your own definitions or comments, and feel free to disagree with us about that. So I want to now take us through, and first of all, to have a look at some time-saving design choices. So they don't just come from the features that your authoring tool ships with. The way that you approach designing the course can also have a big impact. And as with everything else in business, there's a careful balance of initial expense for later reward. And it's important to consider how the whole business benefits from L&D's approach. With this in mind, I'm going to look at 4 areas of design that can save you time, either during the making of the courses or during the taking of them. So the first thing is about storyboarding. Now, this is something that we've gone into some depth in the past with our storyboarding webinars, but we wanted to pull together some of these strands and emphasize the importance of storyboarding, because really a storyboard helps you focus on your learning objectives and the different elements that you're going to be adding to actually address those learning objectives. So the storyboard is going to give you the map. So by quickly assembling and iterating on the most efficient learning routes available, you stand a good chance of saving time and money. And remember that it's always really risky just making it up as you go along. And the beauty of storyboarding is it lets you map the process and review the learner journey before you commit time to building your courses. So if an SME reviews and spots something that needs to change, it's better to do this at the planning stage rather than once time has been spent building out the whole course content. So let's just have a look at just a sample here of a typical storyboard. Just come back out of here. Yeah. And so this is just an example here. Now, this storyboard template, this is available for download from our resources on the website, and we can also send out links to this. But the idea here with the storyboards, it just gives you this template to be able to focus on just what this is going to be about. You can see here, it's going to let you define your project structure, what kind of navigation elements you're going to need, to look at the very high level here about whether you're going to need an introduction, about the actual chapters or topics, as we call them in Gomo, that are going to then appear from the menu. Also to think about whether you're going to need an assessment. And then it can also let you go into the individual screen levels to begin to think before you dive into your authoring tool, what do we actually need in there? In this case here, what videos are we going to need? Are we going to need a transcript in there as well? How are they actually going to move from this screen? So by building up that, it gives you this framework that you can review. make sure that everyone's happy with the concept and the kind of materials you're going to be putting in there. And then that gives you the way to be able to translate this into your authoring tool so that when you actually come to the build, you know what you're doing and what you're trying to build from that. So let's just come back here. So the next thing that that we want to look at here is this is really to do with the complexity of your courses. That authoring tools, including Gomo, will give you lots of powerful features, whereas particularly if you're L&D experts, that you can really go to town with creating really complex paths through the course that you're building. With what we call dynamic branching, changing the route through depending on choices that people make. And that can be really important, particularly for those high-end types of courses that, that we all love to create. But you need to be really careful about this in terms of reuse and updating of the content. That you might have put together something incredibly brilliant and really intriguing and interesting from a design point of view, but then somebody else later on has to go in and try and figure out what on earth you did, and somebody else might take a copy of it and want to think, oh, that looks great, I'll go in and just change this for my own use. But the whole structure is so complicated and obscure that they're not actually able to reuse it, and they end up having to rebuild it from scratch and probably creating something far less interesting. So always think about whether you actually need all of that design interest and complexity, particularly if this is going to be maintained by other people, if it's going to be reused as a template. So just step back a bit and think, can I simplify this? That so often on the support side of Gomo, we see absolutely intriguing things that people have put together, but we struggle as Gomo experts to understand exactly how it works and what it's supposed to do, particularly when it comes to something not quite working as the customer wants it to. So the message here is, yep, it's great if your tool has all these advanced features, but just be very aware, particularly in terms of working as a team, including working with your subject matter experts, about overcomplicating things. Always think, can I step back and simplify this? The next thing is thinking about interactivity. Now, we've looked at this before in our visual design webinar. Particularly, the danger is just taking a PowerPoint presentation and just taking that and just sticking it directly into your e-learning course. So you have loads and loads of text in there, and all you're doing is just reproducing the PowerPoint, and the learner has to read loads of text on the screen. They click next and read loads more text and so on. So take your design as an opportunity to strip back the content, and in particular to think about interactivity, about how do we make this just more engaging for the learner, and make it more fun as well, so they're not dreading doing a piece of e-learning where they're just going to have to read lots and lots of text from screen to screen. Then they're going to be asked a bunch of compliance questions, and that's it. So consider all the elements that you have in your tool to be able to create more interactive design, including, it can be a dangerous word to use, but sort of elements of gamification, just to make that more engaging. Let's just have a look at an example of that we've put together in Gomo, just to show some of these more interactive. So if I just go into my course here. For a start, even from the first screen, here I hope that you can see over GoToWebinar that we have some background video there. So it immediately makes the content more compelling in there. But let's go in to have a look at some interactivity examples here. So what we're doing here is that we're using, in this case, the use of countdown timers as well to add an element of jeopardy into the interactions as well here. So here, when I click the arrows to start, you can see that we have a timer there that's giving me time to read the actual context of this. And it then removes that context, and now I've got a certain time to be able to answer this, and I think that's going to be right. Okay, I managed to get that in time. Now in this case, I have to interact. I have to here just click start. Okay, it's showing me a picture. How many bottles are there in this picture? So I have to quickly try and count. And okay, now I have to guess how many were in there. I think there might have been up to 12. Okay, I've got that right as well. So it's just adding in not only interaction, but a bit more excitement. So in this case, we're making the question more interactive. So here's the question. Right, I've got to arrange these in order here. And let's see whether we can do this. Have I got this right? No, I don't think that's right. Let's move this here. Okay, and I've timed out, so I didn't get that right in time. So again, a simple example, but it's showing, in this case, interactivity through the use of a drag and drop question rather than just using multiple choice. It's also adding in that engagement through the use of those countdown timers as well, so that we know that we've only got a limited time to do something, we better pay attention. And again, it's getting away from just throwing a load of questions and a load of text at people, just making it more interactive and more fun. So always consider interactivity, stripping back particularly your text content there. So let's just go back and have a look at some of the other things that we have here. And following on from that point about reducing the amount of text that you have on the screen, particularly that whole thing of taking PowerPoints. I know that a lot of L&D people dread being sent PowerPoints by their SMEs, and then having to convert that into interactive e-learning and trying to stop it just being PowerPoint-like. So with whatever tool you're using, step back and have a look at the range of interactions that you have and begin to think about how you can stop people just having to click next and next and next to go from screen to screen. Again, the kind of thing that we all dread in e-learning. And so as part of that storyboarding, have a look at the range of things that you have. So for example here, if I just come back out of here. So for example, here with Gomo, we have something called the Interactions Reference Library. This is just a Gomo course designed to show you the range of all the things that you have to play with when considering converting your content into a Gomo course. And for existing customers of Gomo, if you don't have this already, just let us know and we can copy that into your account, because it's a really important thing to have in whatever tool you have, particularly at the storyboarding side of things. So here, for example, I might be thinking, how can I actually begin to break up just the text that I've got from the PowerPoint? So here, for example, with the accordion, this is a really great way to look at your PowerPoint. Typically, PowerPoint slides have text headings and then text underneath that. And what you can do with something like an accordion here is you just take your headings and then it becomes a simple click or tap to expand. And this works really nicely on smartphone. What you don't want with the smartphone mobile experience is for somebody to swiping up and down through a huge amount of text. So instead, here we go. You just simply click or tap and it just expands that. So on a smartphone, then you're not having to swipe up and down at all. And again, it means that I'm not having to click next and next and next to go from screen to screen to screen. So the message here is look at the range of things that you have when you're at the design stage, become familiar with all of the what we call assets in Gomo. So you know what your palette is in terms of design, and then choose the most appropriate ones, both to make it engaging and to really as well sort of to reduce the number of screens. And we found with our customers that they can really, really reduce them down. So rather than, say, a 90-screen PowerPoint, the sheer horror of the thought of that, but we've seen customers starting off with that, they can really reduce that down by using these interactive elements to put more content more elegantly designed on the screens. So let's just go back and just have a look at a few more things here. The next thing is about how having your head in the cloud is a good thing, and you'll see what we did there. So this is really about the efficiencies, and I'll use that term again, of using a cloud-based product. So that in terms of the cost and time benefits here, that if you're using a cloud-based product, then all of the burden of updating the software goes onto the actual software provider. So what that leads to is that you don't need to really involve your IT team. If there's no software to install, there aren't any updates to manage, to roll out by your IT team. They don't have to manage license keys. Don't find that somebody's gone on vacation and the license key is locked on their desktop computer. And it makes it so much simpler for the IT team. Yes, they might have initial questions about cloud security and so forth, and your vendor should be able to work with them to explain exactly what their security architecture is. But once the tool's been approved, then all you need as designers is just a browser and an internet connection, and that's it. You don't have to rely on plugins and so forth. The next thing is also the low system requirements. All you need is just a modern web browser, such as Google Chrome. And that's more or less guaranteed to be able to run your cloud-based authoring tool. That you don't have to rely on a certain specification of computer, because on a desktop-based tool, all the processing has to be done locally, meaning you've got far higher system requirements and plenty of time waiting around for low-end machines to crunch the numbers. And with a cloud-based tool, processing time is almost entirely dependent on the tool's server. So provided you have a reliable internet connection, you have very little to worry about. Also, you always have the latest version of the software, that you don't have to worry about getting updates with the cloud-based product. Because imagine if you've got a desktop tool that if you haven't used your authoring tool for a few weeks, then you'll have to start work without all the latest new features until you manually or automatically download them, and that you'll be unable to work while all the latest version is installed. We know all the dreaded updates to security patches and so forth just to operating systems. And also that you'll be liable to encounter problems file sharing if you're part of a team of people all working on different versions of the tool. But meanwhile, a cloud-based authoring tool will be updated by your provider on the servers they use outside of your working hours. So no matter how long you're away from the tool for, the latest version is ready and waiting for you when you need it. Also, centralized resources. So a cloud-based tool doesn't just put your courses in the cloud. It will give you a shared space to pool all of your images and videos and other assets, making them available team-wide. So this prevents designers from having to maintain their own libraries individually, or the organization having to spend time and money on providing and securing something similar on their network. Also, collaborative working. This is the key thing with a cloud-based product. That desktop authoring tools are particularly time inefficient when it comes to working with others. So at best, you'll be messaging each other to coordinate when a file on your local network is open for editing, forced to take turns one at a time nature of the file. And at worst, you'll be emailing each other with a succession of half-finished files, tripping over an increasingly arcane set of version file names. I'm sure that we've all seen examples of that, like final version, brackets, amended, Hughes copy, and all of those, that kind of mess that you can get into with if just passing around these files. So cloud-based tools allow multiple people to work on and review a document at once with no time wasted waiting for others to finish up or trying to track down the latest version so you can contribute. So really, really powerful features here of a cloud-based approach. So Simon, back over to you to conclude our session.
Thank you very much, Hugh, and I hope everyone's found that really insightful, having a deeper look into what at least efficiencies mean in this context and helping to empower to get our learning designers or our subject matter specialists going with our tools and thinking about a global audience. And having some of the thoughts I'd like to leave with all of us today is considering, are we getting the most out of our existing tools in our toolbox? And whether your current authoring tool or whether you're considering one at the moment, does it potentially, or does it have the capacity to save you time and money from the things that we've shown today? And also the bit that sometimes is overlooked, does your current provider help you to be more efficient? Does it provide robust training, bite-sized learning, support methodology to ensure that you're getting the most out of your tools when you need it, so that you're not missing those deadlines, or you're able to enhance your learner experience without lots and lots of research? Can you and do you have access to those resources? So as we're just closing off the session today, I'd like to just open up the poll again, please. So it's the same sort of two questions again. So if everyone could just take a moment, please, to just answer now, has your confidence level changed in perhaps understanding what features might help you to drive those efficiencies with your e-learning? Thank you very much for that. That's excellent. We can certainly see there's been a shift now towards more in the fairly confident, and there's still a few people that aren't too confident, but we will be sending out the resources. So please rest assured, we'll provide additional information for you. And our final poll question for today's session is, would you like to find out more about how Gomo can help you with your e-learning programs? So we'll just close the poll in a few moments. Thank you very much for that. So we're just going to move on to our final couple of slides just to provide some information as we close off the session for you today. So we're going to be sending you the guide on how your authoring tool can save you time and money. That'll be in the email that follows within the next 24 hours. I would also like to just provide you a couple of links of how you can find out more about Gomo. Should you like to know a little bit more about us, we've got our website here at gomolearning.com, and feel free to contact Hugh or myself or the team at contactors@gomolearning.com. And if you would like that trial, we can set you up with Gomo for 21 days for you to have a play with it yourself and experience all of the great functionality that Hugh's shown you today. Well, thank you very much for everyone's time.
Simon, I'd just like to add that we've had some great questions and comments coming in. Apologies if we haven't had time to address them all through the question box, but we will be replying individually after this webinar to you. But we appreciate all your questions and thoughts there.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that, Hugh. And yes, if anyone hasn't had that question answered, we will be responding to you. So thank you everyone for your time and have a great day.
Thank you.